taking right into it, I think my a brief introduction about myself is also including the fact that I am presently working with United Nations Development Program as the project manager in the plastic waste management. So that is about brief about myself. So so I'll be moving along with the presentation. So first, a brief introduction about what Abidjan Convention is, and then we'll be moving on with the certain other aspects about nitty-gritties of the convention, the articles, the functions, as well as its impact, the certain protocols that have been adopted after the convention came into force, and then the successes and challenges, and then what lessons we have learned from the Abidjan Convention and how it is instrumental document that facilitates in the other countries and the regions for going forward in their strive for a better future, a sustainable future. So a brief introduction about Abidjan Convention, it can be very much summed up in, let's say, in a parlance which we usually use as the word signifies convention. It is basically a framework agreement for the management and protection of marine and coastal areas. So it's a document which is enforceable, it is legally binding, and it has certain countries, we'll be talking about them as later, who have signed this convention and adopted. So this convention is basically for the management and protection of the marine life in the regions of West, Central, and now South African regions. It specifies on the sources of pollution, how they must be controlled, like the extensive pollution through oil rigs, that is basically the oil explorations, the ships, the dumping, the land-based operation, and especially the exploration work that is currently undergoing in different countries, especially in the continental shelf of different continents, also now poses a threat to different marine life, especially the reefs and corals in different regions and even the archipelagos. So these are certain areas where it specifically focuses on that how the pollution in these regions and these sensitive marine areas should be controlled and should be regulated, and not only regulated but also preserved and in a way sustainably used for developmental processes. Also, in addition, it also works on ensuring the environmental management through concerns on the collaborative efforts, by stressing on collaborative efforts, the inclusion of impact assessments that is also devised in this framework. Like all the countries have agreed that in a periodic revision, there has to be certain assessments being made, and based on those assessments, we have to work by changing the action plan that previously adopted in their COP meetings. So that is a consistent, let's say, it is a flexible kind of document which gives the participating countries the gap, the kind of gap that they usually require to go forward in these issues, pursuing these issues, devising the assessment mechanisms, and through the reports being the data and the reports being filed, based on that, devising new action plans to work forward. So in that particular context, it also includes the scientific and technological cooperation, not only among the countries, but also from different other countries, from different regions, and the institutions like the World Bank, the IMF for funding, obviously, and also technical cooperation from different other organizations, the scientific research organizations all across the globe. So they have been so in totality, this is an agreement, I can say, in brief, that has covered all the aspects on how we have to work and how the protection and management aspect of marine and coastal life can be attributed and can be moved forward with. So, as I have briefly explained about the convention, so now why this convention became an important, let's say, uh, a debating point among these countries in late, especially in 1980s, when these countries came into realization that they now require a comprehensive framework among themselves to not only protect uh, their natural environment but also their coastal and marine ecosystems. So why it is so important and why this convention came into being is certainly taken into, let's say, I'll be briefing them about in the 2 points that I have mentioned in the heading, why this convention is important. So, as you know, that Africa by far is one of the, let's say, explored, unexplored part of world, because mostly it is much famous for making headlines for different kind of ethnic conflicts. Uh, that is a negative sense, but anyways, that is what the reality is all about. But also it makes headlines for different kind of rare earth minerals, the kind of natural resources that the countries and the continent possesses. So it's a diverse continent where you find different ethnicities, different culture, customs, and despite the fact that having such a diversity, it has been able to move forward from the shackles of the colonialism, which is a political statement, and let's say the political part of, not going into that much further. But yes, it has been under occupation of many colonialistic powers, and despite the fact having a colonial history, now many of the African nations are stepping up their potential and now working forward, moving forward, and are now some of them representing in different global forums. So, uh, especially when we talk about the West African region, it's home to various marine ecosystems, especially when we talk about the currents, the ocean currents, like when we talk about the Belgian current, which is basically in the southern area, the southern Atlantic area, where it forms the southern Atlantic gyre. So, and also the Canary Islands, uh, the current there forming the northern part of Atlantic gyre, and they have other systems as well, like mangroves, the wetlands, several hundred species like of fish, of even on land also there is a lot of diversity in species. We have 1/3 of the region's population, that is entire African continent's population, living along these coasts. These natural assets allow several million people to live off with these resources of fishing, aquaculture, and tourism. But the problem that the countries faced, especially in the 80s and 70s, that these coastal areas now face a lot of pressure, the multitude of threats that has affected the health of the population. It has impacted through the coastal erosions, the climate change, ocean acidification. These are the challenges that have actually emerged in the West and Central African region during 17 and 80s. We have also seen that these countries, those times, also faced a lot of political uncertainties. And apart from that, the early, let's say, the impact of climate change and global warming was very much visible during 17 and 80s, where the major thrust was given, especially the competing powers were having a thrust of rapid industrialization in the post-war era. So these were the issues that were propping up in the continent, especially in these regions, which greatly influenced the decision among these countries, a realization that yes, we have to come forward and devise certain strategies which will determine our sustainable future. And through that, we'll be able to preserve our natural environment and as well as our resources and others related aspects. So also we can let's say dwell upon the kind of economic significance that also concerns with this region. Like for example, the Nigeria, one of the countries in this region, is the largest economy in this continent. The growth of this entire West and Central African region, according to the World Bank report, is about 3.4%, which is for this coming year 2023, which is down by 3.7%. It is also resource rich, especially in rare earth mineral, diamond, nuclear energy, oil, etc. There are a lot of natural resources can be found in this region. Also, it has 12% of population, especially this region has 12% of population under the age of 15, which is, I think, reflects upon the fact that this convention, though adopted in 1981, has certain dimensions that is beyond, let's say, the scope of that thinking. So they were far-looking people who have drafted this convention and came up with this, let's say, convention which has including diverse aspects. So that far-fetchedness of those thinkers is also must is something that has to be appreciated, because at this point of time it has population of 12%, which is under the age of 15, which is basically going to be the future of Africa. Also in the West African Economic and Monetary Union countries, which includes Benin, Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast, Guinea-Bissau, Mali, Niger, Senegal, and Togo, also having a lot of natural resources, and has a growth of about, let's say, 5.5% growth. So it's a very economically significant region. So that is why this convention, the kind of economic, let's say, the opportunities that exist. So that is why it is important that to understand that this convention came up uh, to protect the natural uh, uh, aspects and the issues of these countries. Now, coming upon the let's say pointers, or let's say the brief about this convention, the certain quick points that we can dwell upon it. Uh, yes, as I stated, that it was in 1981 that this convention it came into being. The document so negotiated came into force in 1984. Since then, the protocols have been, let's say, devised over its COP meetings that happen on a regular interval basis uh, among these parties, and it has a legal, as a legal document, it has enforceability in all the agreeing parties, the sovereign countries. It has 31 articles. It has the members who have agreed and adopted this Abidjan Convention are Angola, Benin, Cameroon, Cape Verde, Democratic Republic of Congo, Republic of Congo, the Ivory Coast, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, Gambia, Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mauritania, Namibia, Niger, South Tome a Principe, Senegal, Sierra Leone, South Africa, and Togo. South Africa became the part of this convention in March 2000, when certain amendments were made, and in 2008 it was being actually ratified, and other observer state nations also joined this convention. So, in brief, as I have stated, that the convention stresses upon the economic, social, and health value of the marine environment and coastal areas. In the next, we have it also shares not only the concerns but also the responsibilities of the nations to preserve their natural environment, heritage, benefit for employment and present and future generation. So it has been a document that not only serves the interest of present but also for the future generations as well. Now, coming upon the contracting parties have adopted protocol for cooperation and combating pollution in cases of emergency, like oil spills or some kind of natural calamity or natural issues. So contingency plans or man-made disasters have been adopted by these concerned parties. Also, as I have stated that in 2008, the convention changed its, let's say, name, the title, uh, to the Convention for Cooperation in Protection, Management, and Development of Marine Coastal Environment of the Atlantic Coast of the West, Central, and Southern African region, and Protocol concerning cooperation in combating pollution in case of emergency. Article 16 suggests its secretariat, and the depository of this convention is the government of Ivory Coast. So now coming upon the brief about, let's say, the provisions that it offers. So Article 4 basically defines the ambit, the broader ambit in which this convention works, which is basically prevention, reduction, combat, and control of pollution to ensure the sound environmental management of resources in the convention areas. 5 to 11 articles also elaborates that how it has, let's say, the kind of pollution that it addresses, the kind of the area that is to be protected, like in the coastal erosion, the continental shelves. So it gives a broader aspect in which how these countries will work together to control the kind of pollution that exists. Also, the contracting parties have called upon to work together so as to contain the fragile ecosystems and endangered species by controlling the activities which have adverse effect on the endangered species, ecosystem, and biological processes. Article 14 specifically mentions about the scientific research, monitoring, assessment of the pollution in the convention areas. And subsequently, after its adoption in 1984, the successive conference of party meets have revitalized the convention by incorporating UN clause, biodiversity conventions, and UNFCCC conventions through amendments, consistent amendments that have been made. So moving on to the, let's say, the important protocols. So in very brief, I have given about the protocols that are major protocols that have been adopted by the Abidjan Convention countries. That is Point Nore Protocol, which aims about facilitating the implementation of integrated coastal management, like Grand Bassam Protocol. The objective of this is to combat pollution based on the land-based activities. The Calabar Protocol creates about the regional framework for sustainable mangrove management, and Malibu Protocol uh, uh, concerning about the environmental norms and standards related to the offshore oil and gas activities that I have also dwelled upon in the introductory part. So these are certain protocols in which the detail has been the detail about how these countries will protect, and the laws, the kind of framework that is required to put to enforce those laws have been detailed and discussed and adopted. So moving about the success and the challenges that have been into uh, 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 that has been associated with these conventions. So in 4 points, like 4 success and 4 challenges that I have identified have been mentioned here. So we'll be talking in a brief movement about all these. So as you can see, the first, which I believe is a great success story, is the promotion of cooperation and inclusion in the region. As different ethnicities, different customs these countries have, despite that becoming an impediment, it has, let's say, brought them closer through this convention, and they have agreed upon and come up with this kind of convention in which the interest of all the countries have, let's say, been catered upon. So this is something very, let's say, from the people, the cooperation among countries is something that is, I believe, a very much success. Second point is the comprehensive model for the preservation of land, marine, and coastal ecosystems through the adoption of all those the protocols that I have mentioned, and which is very much about how it has evolved over the years and through the rapid amendments being made and changes in the strategies. The third, I think, is the eased jurisdictional and sovereign issues among the agreeing parties for demarcation of the protected areas. This has been something that has been very much contentious issue, and now I think it has been through the years, through COP meetings of this convention, has really eased out, and now they are talking beyond. Like if I can mention about COP 11 and COP 12 of this convention, the conservation and sustainable use of marine biodiversity of areas located beyond national jurisdiction is something that is agreed by these parties. So they are realizing that yes, this convention needs revitalization and also some comprehensive bedrocks that should ensure that not only the concerned parties, the regions that have agreed, but also to other regions as well, where they can collectively work upon, demarcate, and not make this issue into sovereign issues and getting into the political aspects of it. So that is also a kind of success. And the fourth one is, I think, most important of all the three that I have recently, let's say, dwelled upon, is the promotion of joint initiative within the framework parties through creation of various regional cooperating units. Over this, there has been a very good research paper by Harry Barnes, Deben, Sylvia Carlson, and Winkhuizen. The title of this paper, these four people, the four gentlemen, have written this beautiful paper in which they have given how this convention has become a success over the years. The title of this paper is Influence of Regional Coordinating Units of Abidjan Convention Implementing Multilateral Agreements to Prevent the Shipping Pollution in the West and Central African region. So this paper very comprehensively deals and tells about how the countries have worked together in combating the issues of shipping based pollution and oil spills and other aspects. So apart from that, these are the stories that really inspired that yes, this convention has worked really well and stood the test of time. But also there are certain challenges. As one of the major challenges is the funding and patronage, especially when we talk about two of the initiatives that have been taken by World Bank. The progress has been slow. If I can mention them, that first being the Regional Emergency Solar Power Intervention Project, through like most of these countries derive their power through uh, uh, fossil fuels. So to shift them to greener energy, this initiative of World Bank was taken into consideration and adopted. But the process has been slow because of funding issues, and let's say divestment of funds have not been into greater extent to the direct extent to the governments there. So physical responsibility, the huge cost becomes an issue for the governments here to let's say channelize. So it becomes a big issue. Also, in 2018, also there was another project announced, that is West Africa Coast Areas Resilience Investment Project. So this also is a beautiful project, a project which ensures that how the coastal area infrastructure, in which it is not only sustainable but also through command and control mechanisms, can be brought in place so that the interests of these countries are protected, and also their natural resources and sustainable use is done. So this project is also held up because of is held up, sorry, for because of the issues of funding and the patronage required. Also, the region has been in present times been engulfed into various ethnic issues, conflicts, and geopolitical instability. The other issue, I believe, is the voice of Global South, because Africa is a home, I can say, for Global South, and its voices have not been, let's say, heard on the high table of diplomacy and influential institutions. So I believe that that should also be due regarded, and that is somewhere missing. And if that is also included, like if the Abidjan Convention countries can influence that, and they can be incorporated in such institution, it will definitely bring more vitalization to this convention. And also the strategic realignment in the geopolitical landscape is also a problem that the convention presently faces. So apart from, let's say, I brief about how this convention works and the issues therein, the lessons that we have learned. So I have, in brief, I can say the Abidjan Convention, despite, let's say, facing all its odds, focuses on greening economy. Since 1981, since it was negotiated, came into force in 1984 till present date, it focuses, on greening economy, which is, I think, one of the lessons that we have also learned from these presentations. That yes, there is a consistent focus, but yes, there are certain challenges that needs addressing. Also, the second lesson that we learned from the Abidjan Convention, and through its thorough look and comprehensive assessment, that preservation and responsibility is certainly fixed. Like on the nations that have agreed upon over this convention, have by far uh, preserved, and through taking responsibilities, they have actually put forward certain mechanisms, certain good models, which have all which are showing better results in this region. So that is something that is a worth lesson that every other countries and other regions and other groupings must, let's say, take upon for consideration. The third is the cooperative and inclusive growth that it promotes. Over the years, the cooperation, the inclusivity, resolving differences, creating, let's say, diversifying the convention through different the regional cooperating units, have shown that how cooperatively they have worked, and how they are ensuring that each of the participating countries grow together in an inclusive way. So with this, I think I have lapsed my time as well, and thank you for having me and giving me this opportunity to present my presentation on Abidjan Convention, and talking briefly about how this convention is very much important